on the clock. Here we go. All right. Well, first off, I'd like to just welcome everybody who was able to attend here, all our faculty, researchers, and everybody who's reviewing this afterwards. Really hope that this provides insightful and useful information as you're starting your own research journey. Today, we're going to be talking about formulating your research vision. So establishing your vision for research is a key first step in a successful undergraduate research project. Today, we're going to be discussing some of the basics associated with getting started in your research. We'll be examining important considerations to establish your personal research vision, identifying opportunities to engage and develop research, commonly found in our shared learning environment. We're going to talk about developing a strategy for supporting research in your academic journey, including addressing typical barriers, obtaining guidance and support, and setting research goals to establish a path to success. We'll then go over the typical roles and responsibilities of research team members. We'll hear from our experienced faculty researchers, and then we'll close up with some next steps that are recommended. So research has many definitions. You could look at Merriam-Webster's definitions, which include investigation or experimentation that's aimed at the discovery and interpretation of facts, the revision of accepted theories or laws in light of new facts, or practical application of such new or revised theories or laws. There's also a simpler definition, collecting of information about a particular subject. Some other universities, such as Hampshire College, define research as a process of systematic inquiry that features data collection, analysis, documentation, and interpretation. It's also defined as the creation of new knowledge and the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way so as to generate new concepts, methodologies, and understanding. Embry-Riddle's Institutional Review Board defines research as a systematic investigation, including research development, testing and evaluation, designed to develop or contribute to generalized knowledge. However you personally define research, know that it plays a critical role in the academic and professional settings, including your classwork, as well as professional careers. The lessons that you learn now, the experiences you gain, and the understanding that you develop through the pursuit and support of research will help you to better understand the world around you. The image that's currently on the screen depicts a very formal and structured research development process, from conceptual development to continuation of refined research, including approval and review or feedback, as well as publication and presentation. This process that you see represents an incremental and iterative model as the researcher increases their understanding through investigation and uses newly discovered knowledge, experience, feedback, and resources to inform, refine, and support future exploration or inquiry. Not every pathway to develop research may look like this, but you're going to see common threads among the various processes that are out there. So now that we've kind of covered that formal process, how do you get started? How do you get to each element of that development model? Why is it so complex? Well, starting your journey into research can feel a bit overwhelming, especially at first. When you're presented with processes, procedures, or expectations that you do not know well. The good news is if you're past your freshman year in your studies, you most likely have some level of experience conducting research. Understanding where you can find resources, programs, or mentoring and guidance from your faculty can really help out. As you navigate research development, remember you have access to a wide variety of materials, insight, and expertise that can inspire and guide your pursuits. One of the first steps that we recommend you consider is beginning with an agenda. A research agenda provides insight into the motivation behind and the potential impact of your line of research. In other words, it helps to contextualize what it is that you want to study. The initial step is to define the purpose, the focus of your overall work. This will require some inward reflection. Consider what is important to you, what connects to what you want to do, and relates to topics you find interesting. Why do you want to study it? When would be an opportune time to begin and conclude? Then think about your access to resources. Are there subject matter experts in your radius? This will help with the who is to be involved, or really who's going to be affected by your research. Do you have access to materials, equipment, data, or other supports? That's the how. And will it solely be through Embry-Riddle, or will it feature external support and collaboration? The where. Next, consider what you want to accomplish with your research. For example, what is it that you're good at? What are your specific competencies and areas of expertise? Are there priorities that you have in your academic and professional career that could be supported through conducting research? What's the desired effect on your career? Is what you're looking at sustainable, or will you need to pivot? How does the topic relate to your academic or professional discipline? Is there a connection to prior experience? Who's your audience? Is there a unique facet to consider? And what people do you know and can connect with to support your pursuits? How does this entire thing fit within your personal timeline? Will you complete your work by graduation? Or do you want to continue it into advanced graduate and postgraduate degrees? Finally, begin drafting an outline of your agenda. Similarly to how a meeting agenda provides items to be discussed, a research agenda provides clarity as well as a framework to help make decisions regarding your research activities. As you assemble the components of your agenda, identify a larger problem or an established knowledge gap. This identifiable and literature-supported issue should be important. It should hold personal interest, provide sufficient depth for subsequent investigation, and display a discernible connection to the available literature. Define your anticipated contribution. What is it that you're interested in doing? How might you go about it? Who does it involve or might be affected by it? How is your approach novel, unique, or different than existing research? These are all critical things to consider. Finally, establish a revisable timeline that's focused initially on short, mid, and long-term goals and periods in relation to your desired academic and professional development plans. This image on screen depicts an example of how individual lines of inquiry converge to achieve topical disciplinary focus over time. You can see all the different elements that come together, and this is something that you're not gonna tackle right away. It's gonna take building a portfolio, and that's really what this represents. Is as you advance your studies, you're gonna create more artifacts. But as you learn, as you apply the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are associated with your development of research, you're gonna further focus it. You're gonna be able to better understand your topic and discipline, and you're gonna produce material that helps to advance knowledge. Now that you have an idea of the encompassing area that you want to study, you can begin to develop a research concept. It is this concept that's going to guide your initial foray into and the exploration of a topic. As you are considering and contemplating the various elements of your research agenda, you most likely are able to identify some common trends, themes, and issues that are specific to your field or discipline. What stuck out or connected with you on a personal level? What topic, problem, or issue did you find interesting? Did it potentially get you thinking about ideas for new technical solutions? Or is the issue something that you're highly motivated to investigate? Is this pursuit in response to a prompt from a course activity? Or maybe a project? In any case, use this personal catalyst to drive the development of your concept. This overarching concept should include the definition and cited support of a perceived need. This represents a problem, an issue, or a knowledge gap. The perceived need should be important, hold your interest, and have depth in terms of investigation. It can come from questioning existing literature or even from observations that are made from the field. As you define your concept, consider the scope of the topic and the conceptual theme, specific line of investigation, the issue, the condition, or other contributing factors, major categories of people, content, and systems that might be associated with the inquiry, and then notable findings of others, specifically related studies within the discipline, and how the concept differs or augments established work. The final products of defined concepts should include identification of the background or the statement of the problem, a purpose, which represents the intent or goals of the research, and the significance of research, or the perceived need. These elements can be summarized and shared with others in the form of an abstract, a concept paper, a white paper, to solicit feedback and guidance and support. You want to have that shareable artifact because that's what's going to build interest. That's what's going to help you either obtain buy-in from fellow collaborators, from future partners, from funders, all the different people that you need support to develop your concept. You need a way to communicate that. So that's what you're doing when you're developing your concept, is you're making it so that you have something that is shareable. So this, I apologize ahead of time for, this is another just, it's an eye chart. It's kind of hard to see all the stuff on here, but what this represents is just an example of topical research development, from developing the concept to focusing a design to actually conducting the research, and then on to what's called longitudinal development. That's refinement of that concept. You can see as you proceed through, there are a number of spin-off concepts that can come off of each different stage. There's also different products and deliverables that are created from literature review, analysis, experiment, and analysis of data, onwards and onwards. So as you develop research, future opportunity can come from that. In addition to coming to research directly, as we discussed in the development of an agenda or concept, you can also find opportunity presented through a variety of other means. Maybe your motivation for conducting research is to address a course project that requires you to purposefully review available literature to define a project and propose a topic. That's quite common in our learning environment. This is extremely common given how much of our degree programs and courses feature research as well. You might have the start of a research concept sitting in your previously submitted writing assignments or your existing portfolio. Perhaps you've conducted a purposeful cursory literature review that could be expanded upon and investigated further. Another source is collaborative, which might be in conjunction with a more senior mentor, a partner, or a team. This could come from your existing network where you might be invited, see a call for volunteers, or that comes from direct contact to request participation. Another type of collaborative opportunity is participation in formal projects, such as this Research Scholars Program, a capstone course, or even through your employer. Finally, you might find existing research projects that are looking for help either through voluntary participation or as a paid student research assistant. Another source of potential opportunity can come directly from the funding source, both solicited and unsolicited, where the sponsor is requesting submission of a proposal for novel ideas. There are a number of common sources for funding, including the Department of Defense, NASA, the National Science Foundation, Transportation Research Board, and the U.S. Small Business Association. On screen are a number of different links that, if you want access to this, we're going to make sure that this slide deck is provided as a PDF. All of these will be hyperlinked. So looking at our overall model and starting with barriers to research, there are several well-known barriers that can affect your motivation to conduct research. The good news is that there are several ways to address these, including participation in an organized, structured, and supervised program, such as ours. The first common barrier is insufficient guidance or mentorship, which can lead someone to feel overwhelmed, that they don't know enough about research, including where to find answers to critical problems. Enrollment in research-focused coursework, increasing exposure and practicing research, connecting with faculty researchers to mentor and supervise, and participating in structured programs can all help to address this barrier. The next is caused by difficult to use tools, as well as inexperience with processes, methods, or materials. Impediments that are caused by poor user interfaces, clunky, unwieldy tools, or lack of experience with common research processes and procedures can quickly remove a student's motivation. However, direct mentorship, training, or working with a team with a diverse set of knowledge, skills, and experience can help to overcome that barrier. Another challenge that can affect interest is limited access to resources that a student may think are critical to conduct the research. I can say one thing that we've all learned over the last year is that there are numerous remote and online resources, materials, and data that can support our work. We have a number of materials here at Embry-Riddle worldwide, including our Hunt library, with online access to journals and databases, such as the IEEE, ProQuest, and curated research guides. In addition to our future research workshops, the Research Scholars Canvas page includes resources to help support your endeavors. One of the most effective ways to address this potential barrier can be through collaboration and partnership, which can bring additional resources to the table through other academic institutions, government agencies, and even companies. The next common barrier is lack of incentive, or more specifically, inadequate motivation or interest. This can be resolved by establishing clear and achievable goals to establish a direction and a destination. These goals can be related to seeking improved personal performance, enhancing your hireability, and the development of other traits to help you achieve professional or academic growth and success. A major challenge that's not just specific to research, but really occurs in all of our professional lives is time management. We all have many pressing issues and demands on our time, from our personal life to demands of a job. There's also a number of strategies that can help to improve your time management skills. The good news is that these skills and experience translate to many other aspects of our lives. So when you practice them in one area, it becomes easier to apply them to elsewhere. Some of these strategies include creating that research agenda and timeline that we previously mentioned, obtaining mentorship and faculty advisement, and documenting deadlines and deliverables. The lengthy review and approval processes that are typically associated with research can also affect your desire to engage in and conduct it. Familiarization takes time, as well as practice, but doing so under the mentorship and guidance of a seasoned professional faculty member or researcher can help you to build that confidence and experience. The final aspect I'm going to mention tonight is that there's a typically reduced acceptance for student-produced work in publication and presentation venues. While it's not always the case in all disciplines, it may create a challenge that must be overcome. This can be addressed through shared authorship with more experienced researchers who do have an established reputation. By collaborating in such a manner, you'll gain a number of benefits, including increasing your own reputation, proving your performance, and improving your overall experience and name in a topic. Regarding guidance and support, as an early researcher, first developing and practicing the knowledge and skills that are associated with formal research, structured guidance and support is absolutely essential. It's at this stage that you begin to establish your foundation, upon which a lifetime of practice is going to be placed. The guidance and support you need to ensure success come from a variety of sources and experiences. These all culminate in each step of your journey. They could include assignments in your courses with personalized instructor feedback, peer review of a paper from fellow classmates, class or one-on-one discussions with other students, professors, or industry experts, observations made from watching videos, lectures, and presentations, or even taking notes from readings, teamwork and group activities, and even professional work assignments or tasks. A trend you may have noticed from our discussion of barriers is that many of them are best addressed with guidance and support from within your shared learning community. Proceeding on to our research goals, in our formal learning environment of classes, projects, minors, and degree programs, you see research playing a major component of your experience. By starting early and setting research goals, you can help to chart a path forward to success. Your overall goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and directly connected to your individual timeline. There are three overarching elements that should also be incorporated into your set of goals. The first is to describe your work. These goals are focused on generalizing observations and findings. The next is featuring prediction, which relates to using descriptions and newfound understanding to forecast subsequent responses or make informed decisions or hypotheses. The third aspect is to explain. Those goals are focused on identifying cause and effect relationship, sequencing, and when applicable, trending towards rejection of alternative theses. Your goals should be revisable, be updated periodically as needed. And they should also feed into the formation of specific research questions, intent, and objective, and eventually your hypothesis of a project. So now we've talked about different elements of research, how to get established. We're going to talk about the different roles of common team members. And when you establish a team setting, it's good to know responsibility and how this typically is organized. The teams are usually, well, custom to a project, but they can be large, which feature several experienced research faculty on a federally funded grant, or it can be a small group composed entirely of students in a classroom setting. In any case, it's useful to know the common roles and responsibilities. So the first is the principal investigator, or PI. This individual has the primary role for ensuring ethical conduct of the research study. That includes protecting human subject rights, ensuring safety and welfare, protocol compliance, and adherence to regulations, policies, and best practices. The PI oversees the entire project, including management of the timeline, reporting status to sponsor, budgeting, deliverable creation and submission, and maintaining study records. The next is the sub-investigator or co-investigator, commonly called the co-PI. They usually support the PI by really providing a discrete function oversight. They're under the supervision of the PI, but they are delegated authority to make important study-related decisions. Each project usually has a primary contact, especially if it's subject to institutional review board. The PC is the primary point of contact for the project. And like other team members, they can work on a submission, but all those submissions must be certified by the PI before submitted to either an IRB or any external entities. A regulatory coordinator is not commonly included in student research, but this role might be included in larger, more complex projects. The coordinator is usually responsible for drafting or editing protocol documents, submitting new protocols, amendments, and continuing reviews or safety reports to appropriate groups such as the IRB for review. They're responsible for maintaining regulatory material in accordance with sponsor specification and general industry standards. This actually is something that can come to play in our environment at Embry-Riddle due to our connection to aviation. If you're using, say, in my realm is UAS, unmanned aircraft, we have to ensure that we are employing best practices. We have to ensure that we are satisfying Part 107 requirements, including the need for airspace approval if you're going to be operating in controlled airspace through the LANC system. So the regulatory coordinator would be responsible for providing that oversight, for having that specific subject matter expertise in compliance with regulation. Next is the data coordinator. They would handle overall data management of a research project, including data points for analysis that need to be extracted from multiple source documents. They ensure accurate and timely entry and storage of data. They work closely with the sponsors to resolve any requested data queries. Next is the research coordinator. They typically oversee and coordinate the daily activities of the project. including working closely with investigators to ensure all protocol required for procedures are conducted in accordance with specified guidelines. So however you defined it in your proposal, this individual ensures and manages that process. Then we move on. The next are research assistants, who are students who typically are either volunteers or they receive a stipend or payment, or even possibly academic credit to provide support for a project. They may conduct literature reviews, collect, sort, and categorize data, or perform other duties that are assigned by the PI or other project personnel. And finally, due to the dynamic nature of research, there might be other key personnel included in the project. These could be individuals who are certified or licensed to operate equipment, such as Part 107 remote pilot and command, that would be able to conduct unmanned aircraft flights, or an individual professional that's certified to use commercial off-the-shelf tools, such as IBM's SPSS statistical analysis software. So now that I have gone over all the important elements of research development, really from a very formal structured point, including strategies and techniques to help find opportunity, discussing some of the barriers and how to address them, obtaining guidance and support and goal setting, I'd like to use this moment now to invite some of our experienced researchers to share their personal experience with research. So let me see if I can figure out how to stop sharing. All right. So now I think we have the majority of our folks up here. We're joined by our PI, Dr. Emily Faulkner. We have Dr. Aman Gupta, Dr. Robert Buck Joslin, Dr. Robert Dieters, and then Dr. Jeremy Ernst from our campus. And I apologize, Jeremy, your new title, what is your new title? You are in charge of research for our campus. Is it Vice Chancellor? Is it?
Yeah, it's Associate Chancellor for Research, but Jeremy's fine.
Sorry, my speaker went out there. Well, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to actually inquire to Dr. Ernst, what was your first exposure to research? Was it in a professional or academic setting? And how did that help set you on the path that you're now on for research?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you described, Brent, really resonates in terms of the journey and some of the considerations along that process. I can really identify with barriers, and I won't get totally into that, but I do genuinely believe that what doesn't work is just as important in research as discovery of what does. I'm a firm believer in that, and so I love research. I think it's fascinating. Quite enjoy it, and I enjoy helping others with that. So here's the great part, and really what you identified was about the feeling over your head, that overwhelmed feeling when you first get into research opportunity. And quite honestly, it was not orchestrated. It would not be what this primary audience of students would be. Those that are seeking out knowledge associated with research and research processes, and how to establish a vision and what those sequential steps might be. It was much more of you just kind of fell into it in my personal experience. So it was academic oriented, exactly like you laid out initially, course related. That was much more of synthesis and identification of problem statements that could be investigated, and then looking at opportunities. My first real research experience was when I was an undergrad. I applied as a undergraduate research assistant for a digital media lab, and my motive was not the research angle. My motive was I was good at digital media, and I was going to help with that aspect. Then I realized, wow, this is an NSF project, and it has great research questions that I would love to know the answer to. So it was exactly that. It was academic. Then at the undergraduate level, it was very much focused on scientific learning. And at the undergraduate level, really enjoyed that work, and was just drawn to it. And just like you said, identified a group of mentors who kind of assisted in that building, and that overwhelmed feeling was one that I think that's very accurate. But then a lot of encouragement also. And as that encouragement, what that led to was confidence. And people are identifying I have developed some abilities and I have knowledge that I can contribute. So I applied for a research assistantship for my master's, and I got it. And it was also a National Science Foundation grant. And so that was associated with technological literacy. So building in technological literacy as core competency. And so really that was very much, again, learning associated and specific subgroups of learners. So then my knowledge grew along with, had a little bit of direction now as to what I wanted to do. So that I really identified with that area in technology and engineering education. And so that was my focal study. And then I applied for a doctoral research assistantship, and I got that. And it was also with the National Science Foundation project. So, kind of just continually built that experience. That was associated with scientific and technical visualization, so visual literacy, and how you can essentially conceptualize scientific and technical concepts. And that's ends up being my area still, what I investigate. Those are usually the treatments, and the specific subgroups ends up being students who are at risk of non-matriculation in STEM majors. So that's something else that I'm very motivated by. That these interventions make a difference, and I know that others have some similar interest. And identification of research tools, what I would have given for early on an undergraduate experience for someone to kind of walk me through processes, and having that exposure. I do think that the research tool discussion that you just laid out too, Brent, was a great one. I know, I'm sure others do as well, but I know that Dr. Faulkner has an array of research tools, and I've showcased them to faculty before. Those are the kind of things where you have access, an entry point. And I think that sequentially building into that collaborative form, having a mentor-mentee relationship in terms of research, then finding others that can also contribute to areas that you are not, don't necessarily have as strong of a background in, that are complementary. So you building that team, and then also maturing into some independent research at various stages as well. And there are, prospectively, there's funding opportunities to help further propel that on the probably the highest form. So those are some of my experiences. I know I talked about them pretty generically. So if there's anything additionally we'd like to know, I'm happy to do that. But I'll stop there and provide other people an opportunity to tell their experiences.
Thank you for sharing that. That was outstanding. I'm going to turn to Dr. Gupta and ask you what your first exposure to research was, and then how did that experience help to prepare you for what you do now?
Absolutely. Thanks, Brent. First of all, the way you explained the slides, or the way you took us step by step through how to conduct research, how to find resources, how to find help, support, finding your vision, finding opportunity, developing a strategy. I think it was spot on. I hope the students who are attending got a lot out of it, because you took me 20, 30 years back when I was in my undergraduate program, and how I started, and how, and to answer your question of how I started, my research journey started from my internship, which I did in my undergraduate program in India, which was for a tractor manufacturing company in the Department of Maintenance. And the kind of resources, the kind of support, encouragement I got in my internship program kind of incited my interest into research, finding the problem, trying to find the resources, trying to find knowledge, tools, data that can be used to find solutions to that problems. And believe it or not, after working on those projects in the industry, I switched my major from mechanical engineering to industrial engineering because I was so much into learning about the processes, process improvement, operations management, supply chain management topics, that I switched to industrial engineering. And in grad school, in my master's program and Ph.D. program, I worked on projects related to just-in-time, lean manufacturing. So grad school kind of helped me solidify my research topics. And after graduating from my PhD program, which was in supply chain management, I fine-tuned my research into not just supply chain. I wanted to know more about how supply chains have an impact on environment. So it changed to cleaner production, closed loop supply chains, how to bring product back to the supply chains. So it was more of a building block kind of research, solidification, research development. And then after graduating from doctoral program, I worked in industry for a number of years. So that training in grad program and undergraduate program continued in my industry experience also, because I was always looking for problems I wanted to solve. If I see a problem, I cannot live with that problem. So that was kind of training I got from my grad school undergraduate program. And I always strive for looking for ways to solve that problem. And my research is primarily applied research. I'm not much involved into fundamental research. I take approaches developed in my field and or in my area of research, and then I apply it to different fields. So I have worked in the area of healthcare. I have worked area of aviation, aerospace. Just to give you an example, I was after working in industry, I worked as a postdoc at the University of Louisville, and my work was entirely into healthcare. So what we did, we took the models we have developed in the manufacturing sector and we applied that to healthcare. And you won't believe, we published a paper back in 2009, which was on mass vaccination, which is so applicable in today's time with COVID and what is coming our way in the future. So one thing led to another. And like I said, the way you explained it, establishing your vision, finding the opportunity, finding the resources, this is spot on. And my message to undergraduate students who are just getting into establishing or finding a research opportunity is there are problems everywhere to find. It may be a problem you may find in your neighborhood. It may be in a work of in your place of employment, like if you work in industry, or if you're working in a pizza parlor, or it's anywhere you go in a mall, and you can once you identify the problem, you have to go online, talk to the advisor, talk to the faculty, and they can help you a lot instead of just trying to solve that problem on your own. Like you mentioned, that you could talk to your advisor, talk to the faculty. They can guide you a lot, and they can guide you in a direction that how to conduct literature review, how to find solutions which are published in literature. Yeah, that's probably my I think 2 cents what you asked me. So I'm gonna stop here. Thank you.
Outstanding, and thank you for sharing that, especially the component of how your academic journey helped to feed into the industry side. I think it's really important to address that and identify that applied research is something that can very, very much affect and influence and advance what's going on in industry. So it's, we earlier we talked a little bit about collaboration and partnership, and industry is one of the strongest potential sources for that, because they're able to take what we in either technological advancement or scientific development, what we're studying, they can actually use that in the advancement of consumer products and medical care, as you were, talking about adaptation of models. So it's interesting to see the utilization of, our results in such a realistic way, in such a way that is impactful to those around us. So excellent. I'd like to invite Dr. Joslin to kind of talk about his experience with research. And then one thing I would like to really hit him up with, Dr. Joslin helps oversee our graduate capstones. He has probably some of the most experience of anybody I work with in helping to guide these students in that journey. And by the time you get to that, I realize, we're addressing undergrads right now. I want you to think of, your path towards research, and as it gets to really a pinnacle level at the master's level, you are now, you've got a defined topic that you've been working, for years on, really. You're now at the edge of mastery of a topic. And so you're diving in, and there's just, I know Dr. Joslin has a ton of recommendations that can really help set you on that path to success. And that's what I'd like to turn over, is just how did you get into this? And then what recommendations do you have for those students?
Okay, great, thank you. So this was a little bit different than the path I think the other folks have followed. I would say my first exposure to research actually was as an undergraduate mechanical engineering co-op student in the early 1970s, where I was involved as a research assistant, a worker bee, maybe one step below research assistant. Was for an experiment involving pressing ceramic aircraft engine pressure blades into a hub. Long expired technology now, but anyway, it was a big deal back then. But after that, really, other than research associated with dissertations for obtaining my graduate level degrees, I did not have the opportunity to be involved in formal research as an investigator until the early 1990s. I was in the Marine Corps during that time, when I was assigned to the Naval Air Test Center, and where we were conducting research, developmental test, and evaluation on a variety of aircraft and aircraft systems. If I recall, my first research project was actually a comparative analysis involving flight tests of various infrared systems for navigation and targeting when operating in a smoke-filled environment. And this was after Desert Storm, Desert Shield, was to address a problem encountered after Saddam Hussein set fire to all the oil wells, if you recall personally, or maybe from your history book, I think, which resulted in discovering that our existing IR systems were not really suited for seeing through an environment darkened by smoke. So I would say from that time on, I was hooked on research because I'd seen how it could have direct impact, albeit delayed, but direct impact on safety, efficiency, and just improving something in the world. That overall experience as a military test pilot and project test director, which is kind of what the military equivalent is to a PI or principal investigator, is what I think really prepared me the most for research I conducted throughout my military career, and subsequently conducted when I was the chief scientist for flight deck technology for the Federal Aviation Administration after I left the Marine Corps, and now with Embry-Riddle. Two things come to mind from my first exposure to research as being especially significant in preparing me for what I do now as a researcher. The first thing would be that in military aviation research, you normally only have one aircraft or one aircraft system as your test article for conducting your research. So it was imperative to protect that asset, or otherwise run the risk of losing the entire project. The second thing would be that as a military test pilot or test director, you may end up executing someone else's experiment. since people routinely get transferred. Consequently, it was imperative that the proposal or the test plan be clear and comprehensive. And that's what I like to spend on both of these key points in our response to the recommendations that you asked me to address. So I would say my recommendations are, if you've never been a participant in experimental research, then I would encourage you to do so, or non-experimental, I would encourage you to do so if the opportunity arises, because it's invaluable to experience the research process from a participant point of view before you have to develop and conduct one of your own. As was alluded to in the presentation, your topic should be an inch wide, so your analysis can be a mile deep. That should be focused on a specific issue, gap, or problem, so you can explore it and analyze it in depth. A common problem with new researchers is that they often think that their topic is too narrow. So they select a broad and not clearly defined topic. Consequently, they get overwhelmed and either do not address all the aspects of their topic or otherwise just touch upon them superficially and end up with research that's not rigorous or even publishable for that matter. I guarantee you that your scope will grow, and I think my colleagues will agree with that, as you go through the research process. It will grow both by your own doing, based upon your own discovery, and also by the feedback received from your instructors, sponsors, reviewers. Make sure you schedule plenty of time for APA format, proofreading, grammar, spelling, word choice, sentence structure. Remember that those software tools such as Grammarly and spell check are not infallible, especially with technical reports that have unique phraseology and definitions. It's critical not only from your academic perspective for the course you're being graded on, but also if you expect your research to be published in any peer-reviewed scholarly professional journal. I'd say also be prepared for critical reviews that are much more rigorous than you probably have experienced. So you have to be very open to scholarly criticism, have a thick skin, as the colloquial phrase goes. If need be, after you get your feedback, take a deep breath and then do whatever you do to decompress and reflect. Exercise, listen to music, play with your dog, maybe one glass of wine or whatever, and then address each comment. However, if you have a deliberate and defensible reason for not considering the feedback or considering it a different way, then state so. Otherwise, just address each comment. So if they wanted to read, little dogs instead of puppies, then you just change it. The next thing I would recommend, and I'm not dissuading this, but just be aware that conducting research funded by outside sources who have their own deadlines for deliverables can be risky, especially for student research, since you have some firm academic course deadlines of your own. So you need to clearly and honestly evaluate the stability of your funding, which often gets delayed, reduced, or withdrawn altogether. I'm sure my colleagues have experienced all of those. And also the availability of equipment materials that you need. As was alluded to in the presentation, protect your participants from harm. Although your institutional review board approval should address is, if there's any doubt about something that you're doing that could be unsafe, then there is no doubt. You also need to protect your data, your test articles, and your equipment. As I mentioned before, aviation research is often conducted with only one test article. So any issues with that test article can have catastrophic effects on the completion of your research. For example, if you're using some sort of a simulator, then if it breaks down due to maintenance or abuse or misuse, someone's drinking a beverage and spills it on electronics, or let's say you didn't make provisions for protecting your data by backing it up in case one of the data sets gets corrupted or someone inadvertently erases it. Two more things I'll make. You should expect to have to adjust your timeline to accommodate unknown unknowns. So make sure you have a get well plan to get back on track. And I think finally, write your proposal with enough detail and clarity so someone not involved, but at least someone conversant in the topic area could execute your research plan. The good news is that information in your proposal can be transferred almost directly to populate the first few sections of your final report. It's pretty much can be cut and pasted verbatim other than updating your literature review, which should be continuous until you finish your final report, and perhaps some minor changes you may have had to make to your methodology approved by your sponsor, and then some tense changes in your wording since your final report is stating what you did and not what you planned. So those are kind of encapsulates, probably maybe too many, but those are some recommendations. Thanks for the opportunity for sharing.
Dr. Joslin, that is amazing, and thank you. I mean, you're giving, you know, insight that is, it's valuable from the initiation of their research journey through to, you know, a time when they'll potentially see you in a master's environment. So I really thank you for helping to conceptualize this, especially, you know, how many of our learners that come to us are, they also share that military background where they could be conducting activities and events in their day-to-day lives that's quantified as research and development. It may have an element to it that can be built off or at least inform future decision making. So I really do appreciate that insight. Next, I'd like to turn to Dr. Dieters and ask a question, and then we will proceed. We'll wrap up with Dr. Falconer. You know, we'll try to kind of go through this a little quicker, but definitely, you know, we're covering some amazing stuff here. So to Dr. Dieters, I would like to ask you, what current conditions create an exciting opportunity for student researchers, especially in lieu of, you know, you're a program coordinator for the Bachelor of Science in Engineering and Technology degree. What are some current engineering studies or state of affairs that are leading to, you know, really exciting opportunity?
Well, I guess that's kind of very broad, because the nice thing about engineering and engineering tech really is you can take anything, you make it better, and you've accomplished something. And I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose of engineering and engineering technology. So it's kind of you look at, you know, anything in your daily life, you know, somewhere, you know, someplace an engineering technologist had a hand in that. So there's research almost in almost every aspect of your life on that. Now, personally, on my field right now, you know, there's, you know, as you probably are already aware with, you know, Embry-Riddle being Aeronautical University, and we have a big thing on UAS. You know, topics I'm working on right now are a lot on, you know, the small UAS, their aerodynamics, and you know, while you think, yes, airplanes have been around for, well, I guess almost 120 years now, a lot is still not known. You know, there's you know, I'm an aerodynamicist myself, experimental aerodynamicist. So I like to actually, you know, test things. That's what my training was, my background's on. So I can always find new things to test, things we're not really sure of. And as Dr. Joslin put there, you know, eating all these items, you can find that little tiny inch that hasn't been studied yet, and you have a long-term history of, you know, what you can study. I've been studying small propellers now for way too long, but there's always something new about them. I went from just small propellers on, you know, fixed wings to the multi-rotors when they became popular. Now looking at, you know, NASA's been putting a lot into what's called distributed electric propulsion. That goes just for on large fixed wing, a whole bunch of propellers together. Now that we have the technology and power that we can do these for the, you know, battery power for this is being looked at. And I'm doing research now, you know, that sounds great, but we don't understand the aerodynamics between the propeller and the wing and vice versa. So, I mean, I have research plans on, you know, actually just a colleague of mine and me, collaborator, we just sent out 4 research items to, we have 4 research items that we sent out to 4 different, you know, solicitations out to government agencies, saying, you know, do you like these? Do you want to fund us? So it's kind of you know, lots of different areas there, but it's kind of you know, UAS. You know, space is very big right now as well. If you're staying with the aerospace, If you're going more mechanical wise, electrical, all of that, all the green energy, big area of just, how do we store that power? We have a lot of resources in the US for green energy, but it's how do you incorporate those into the grid? How do you store that energy? Lots of different new inventions on that. And just with that, as well as, the electric vehicles itself, or green energy, that type of green energy. Those are the areas I'm kind of familiar with, but I'm sure there's all the things with computers, electrical engineering. As I said, any type of system you don't really think about, there's always ways to improve. So it's kind of as I mentioned, it's a very large, very simple sounding question, but a very large answer to that.
Outstanding. Well, and to Dr. Falconer, I'd like to pose the question. You're the mastermind of our project and the adaptation of research scholars here at Embry-Riddle worldwide. What recommendations do you have for those students that are looking to first get involved in research?
My recommendation is to recognize that part of the research process involves some small failures along the way, and not to let that stop you in your progress. It is really easy to feel something called imposter syndrome, where you feel like maybe you don't belong as a researcher, but it's something I've struggled with repeatedly. I started off as an undergraduate researcher back in 2002 was my first research experience, and I felt like I absolutely didn't belong. And my next research experience, there's a program called Research Experience for Teachers. It's just like REU, Research Experience for Undergraduates, but it's for teachers. I felt like an imposter there too, and I hit barriers along the way, and you just got to look and see what you can learn from it. Like Jeremy mentioned, is even when there's failures, you can still learn from that, and there's still value in that. So just whenever you hit a barrier in your research, just keep going, because there's so much beyond that barrier.
Outstanding guidance. And yeah, the other thing is, all of us here, we're all faculty. We're all an available resource to help. As you explore this, you're going to have questions. That's inherent to research. The whole reason research exists is questions exist. We want to know what are the answers to these, or at least what is the current, most accurate aspect of this phenomena that we're studying. So, I guess our next step on this is sharing with you, if you are interested in learning more about research, if you want to explore participating in the Research Scholars Program, your next step, here's a little bit of homework. Your next step is going to be to talk to your academic advisor. That will help start the process. From there, once you've expressed interest, you'll be assigned a research mentor who can help you to explore the various tools that we have out there, the resources, as well as some high-level topics to help support your development of your concept and eventually a proposal. And keep in mind, we have a large group of faculty who have volunteered their time. They have existing projects, they have existing topics that they would like to study. They just don't have this, enough hours in the day. However, student support on that could play an instrumental role, and that's the type of thing where you can carve out a unique niche underneath that, and everybody wins. So, during the next, few months, really, as you're examining this, you'll look at literature, you'll talk to faculty, you'll explore topics, including past studies, and you'll participate in the next remaining 5 research skills workshops that we're going to have. Once you do have your concept defined and you have an associated proposal, you're going to then meet with those participating faculty to secure a sponsor. a research supervisor who will also serve as your instructor for RSCH 395. That supervisor will help you to advance your research while you conduct the plan that you've outlined in your approved proposal. And once you've completed that, you will work with that faculty researcher to publish and present your work at a public venue like a conference or a symposium. And like I said, that's all in collaboration and conjunction with that research supervisor. So that helps to break down quite a few of those barriers that we talked about earlier. That being said, we do have some folks on here. I would like to open the floor to Q&A if you have any. You could put a hand up and I'm happy to recognize, or if you want to type it in the chat, we can read it there. But yeah, love to answer any questions you have. All right, I'll say going once, going twice, no questions. Then really do want to just say thank you to everybody who's joined us this evening and participated in the webinar. I want to take this opportunity to also encourage you to visit and enroll on the Research Scholars Canvas page, where you'll find a discussion area for this session, as well as materials and resources to help you on your journey. Feel free to add in any questions or share any interesting research materials that you've found in that common discussion area. And then finally, the recording from this webinar is going to be added. It'll be uploaded and presented on that Canvas page to be shared with those that can't make it. So I look forward to seeing you all at our next session, which will be Submission and Review Gauntlet, which is going to be led by our PI, Dr. Emily Faulkner, on Wednesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, with that, everybody have a wonderful evening, and thank you to all that joined.
Thanks, Brent.